NBA games in front of us, which we will walk you through along with any breaking news and important items as we go. I'm Chris Spags, joined again by one of the smartest men in the world of NBA daily fantasy sports, Mr. Fast Eddie Fear. How you doing, Eduardo?
I am quite well, and yourself?
I'm good. I got to call you Eduardo for some reason. That just flowed through me. My Latin spice is shining through today.
I can see it.
So it's beaming from you. Also beaming from me, excitement over new DFS sites, and one of which is a presenting sponsor of this here show, the folks at Thrive Fantasy, one of our favorite ad clients we have out there. They've been supporting the show for a while, so go check them out now. Thrive Fantasy is the new DFS app where players draft a lineup built entirely of prop bets of top-tier athletes. You pick 10 props out of the 20, and the less probable a prop is to occur, the more points it's worth, and that's where the game theory kicks in. So go click the link. I'm going to drop it to the YouTube chat. Get $10 on any $10 deposit, $20 on a $100 deposit, and $50 for $200 or more. So check that out now. It's a fast release deposit, so you'll get that right away. Don't have to wait around for it.
That's
but Eddie, this is a guy. It's already one of those shows with a lot of that's what she said before we came on the air. Luka Doncic. I love Luka Doncic tonight. He's one of my favorite plays on the slate. They have a prop bet for him on Thrive, Eddie, of over under 19.5 points. For the over, you get 90. For the under, you get 110. What are you doing with a 19.5 over-under for points for Luka?
I'm taking my 90 points.
I am too. I'm going over. I got him at 22. Usage rate, 9 of the last 10 games above 30%. Luka looks real tasty versus these Knicks. But what are you thinking of him today?
Yeah, I mean, he'll get that unless this game blows out or shit goes a little bit sideways. But he's amazing. If you have watched him, that's pretty obvious. If you've seen how bad the Knicks are on both ends of the court, but really... defensively, he's just been phenomenal in all the games, I've watched recently. He's 3 of his last 4, he's over 50. There's a couple 60s in there. Like, he's just crushing it. So, imagine not drafting him. Imagine being one of the guys pushing back for the big... there are people who are just like, he's not that good. I'm like, right now, he's so much better than the other rookies. And still is, but maybe Ayton develops or Young develops or Jaren Jackson Jr. has a big ceiling as a player, but he's the real deal right now.
Young, I feel bad for Young a little bit. Actually, I like him on another guy I like on today's slate. But obviously, go check out Thrive. Click that link. But Trey Young, I feel bad for Trey though. Every time he has to be like, "Look, we both won in the trade." Like, I think Trey Young's getting better. I think he's getting more competent at playmaking and he's taking better shots, but. He's going to have to defend that for literally the entirety of his career.
What do you expect him to say? Nah, you're right, I'm shit. To be honest, what are your feelings on that trade that happened between you and Luka? We got screwed because he's really good and I'm shit. Like, I really don't know what they expect him to come back with every time he gets asked about it, but...
They thought I was Steph Curry? Are you serious?
Yeah, he could be Steph Curry. That's a hell of a ceiling to expect for anyone. I put the odds on that at about 1%. But he's got as good of a chance as anyone did, and he doesn't look that different than Steph did as a rookie. He's not as good of a shooter, but Steph really, really developed, and once Steph got healthy, he took off. But it's not the craziest thing I've heard. I mean, for all the player comparisons in the world, Alonzo Trier is good as Luka, has been bandied around this. That seems a little more ridiculous. So,
yeah, that seems like a Nick headline writer, but yeah, no, Trey Young could be the RC Cola Steph Curry. I think that's his best shot at it. Maybe Jolt Cola, depending upon the energy he plays with. Let's talk, Eddie, about let's talk about this game because we have one guy who's going to be very highly owned on the other side for the Knicks. Trey Burke, people going back to the well apparently, and looking at the numbers, it logically makes sense to go back there. But we talked a little about Luka, but tell me about your love for Trey Burke and I guess this game in general.
Yeah, it's purely an ownership play. Like, none of us really know shit with how this is going to go. And a lot of the times, I know what I'm talking about. And then there's another chunk of the time where I pretend like I know what I'm talking about, and I really don't. And then there's here where I've just given up. Like, really, when Kadeem got in the last game, and he didn't play in the entire second quarter, I was just like, okay. Fizzy has not liked Burke the entire year. Moutier was pretty clearly his guy, and then after that, Ntilikina was probably his guy, and Trey Burke was, if he got hot, he left him in there, but just not clearly as highly regarded by the coach. So, I'm concerned with earning it. So it just comes into, an ownership play. There is all the ceiling in the world. The matchup is not particularly bad. He's still priced really well on Yahoo, just fine on DK. Getting a little more arduous on FanDuel, but again, point guard, especially in that middle range, not a lot there on FanDuel. So, sure, there's a real chance that he plays 32 minutes and scores 45 fantasy points. Wouldn't really surprise me at all. There's a real chance he plays 22 minutes and scores 22 fantasy points. There's a chance he plays 32 minutes and scores 22 fantasy points. Like, it can go a whole lot of different ways. It's just an ownership play. It was like Rondé yesterday. I got the most pushback of all the guys I said not to play. I try to identify popular guys who, Rondé was a really bad play yesterday, and it was an algorithm play that was obviously going to pop for people, and people were going to jump all over it. He was going to play 20 minutes. I said over and over again. I said 19. I said 20. He played 21, and he played extremely well and managed to put up 25 fantasy points. But he was like 30% owned. It was an asininely terrible play. And, I said play Nerlens over him. He got 38. I said play McCall Bridges over him. He got 42. Like, you got really lucky that you got 25 out of Rondé Hollis Jefferson on the back end of a back-to-back with everyone, or with Graham coming back healthy for that team and the consistent disregard Atkinson has shown him. Like, that was a play I can't wait to get away from. So he didn't win you anything, but you got lucky that he didn't lose you anything. But, it's a similar situation. But again, I would have really liked Rondé if I thought he was going to be 8% owned. He was 30% owned. That was a really, really bad play. Trey Burke, I think we have projected right now for somewhere in the high teens. That's fine. That's about where that should be. If you're playing some Trey Burke, I'm fine with it at that point. If you're not playing him, I'm fine with it also at that point. I don't think there's any need to kill yourself to get some huge Trey Burke exposure. Someone on that team should be good, so I do like playing some Bonley. I do like playing some Alonzo Trier as his prices started to become a little bit less redonkulous around the industry. You can do Mario Hezonja, where he's, a very nice FanDuel punt drop guy. So, I like grabbing a guy from the Knicks, but I don't have a strong take on Trey Burke. I rarely have strong takes, really, honestly. I get a lot of shit.
You're known for being very docile. You're like a dog getting its belly petted.
I tend to be kind of milquetoast, as the saying goes with a Q, but, yesterday I actually had a strong take, and geez, people, lose their shit. So, I'm right back to being completely centrist and boring. I have no strong take on Trey Burke. He's fine. He certainly has the upside to smash the living shit out of 5,000. He could also very possibly disappoint. The ownership we have him projected at is probably about the logical point for him to be at right now.
So let's talk about another game here where there's a lot of injury news, a lot of potential trade rumors swirling into injury reports, perhaps for the Pelicans. A lot of highly owned projected players there on their side today versus Denver. Eddie, I'm a big Darius Miller guy. I've been a big fan of his whenever you have either two of the bigs out. Now you have all three out. Okafor as well. We talked a lot about him. I'm sold on him, honestly. I thought if any game he was going to get played off the floor, it was going to be yesterday. He did not. He hung in there. He takes high percentage shots. He gets really good at putbacks. Obviously going to be a little bit tougher today versus Jokic, but I like the Pelicans again. It's a back-to-back kind of letdown spot, so that worries me, but they're going to be highly owned players. I'm in on the big three at least. How are you feeling about them?
The big three being Okafor, Holiday.
Okafor, Miller, and Holiday. The new big three for New Orleans.
Yeah, I was about to say, Okafor and Holiday. Darius Miller is a member of that trifecta I'm a little nervous about. I think Darius Miller is just fine. He's probably the third best play on this team. I think he's 42 on FanDuel, where that's a fine drop, and small forward is, as frequently the case, not the greatest position. 38 on DK is really cheap. This will be yet another big test for Okafor, but he's looked really good in the last few times I thought he was in a big test spot. And there's a few reasons for his improvement. One is his larger issues have always been on the defensive side of the court, and they simply don't have that many great guys to replace him with. They can throw a Check Diallo out there for him. They can run some really wonky lineups, but they really need him to play 30-plus minutes out there. So, and I think that gives him a little more, state of mind comfort, and that it's like, okay, I'm going to play. I'm the starting center. I'm going out there. I'm going to get my time. And he's still not great defensively, which, I am excited to see what Nikola Jokic can do to him tonight. But I have been telling people to slow their roll on it a little bit. He is obviously much better. That much is obvious. Another thing is he's in much better shape. His conditioning really was wanting for a couple of years there, coming out of being third pick in the draft or what have you, and for a while he's in much better shape. So it's a combination of things. He's good. He's not this good. This has a lot to do with he's sharing the court with Frank Jackson and Tim Frazier and
Sure.
Darius Miller and Solomon Hill and
Kenrick Williams is getting 15 rebounds.
And exactly. And Drew, who while he's incredibly capable, isn't always the most ball dominant guy. So he's literally the 1A, 1B offensive threat on the team now. So these are over performances, but he's legitimately improved a lot and is still quite young. So people get better at basketball for quite a long period of time. So he should have a couple more years to improve as a player. So I like him just fine. I worry about foul trouble here. Again, everything is in ownership play. Right now we have him as the highest owned player on the slate, apparently at 45%.
Correct.
I would probably daddy not like that at this point. Obviously the ceiling is there. That's a big number. So I think a little less than 45, but that's again about right. That's about where I would want to be. So that's again no big take there. I do like Kenrich Williams, who you alluded to for a minute there, who is very possibly, even though he's a rookie, older than Jahlil Okafor. I need to look it up, but he may be older. Kenrich Williams is, I believe, 24. So he's not actually a baby. I could be wrong on that. If you're bored, go ahead and look that one up for me. But
he is 24. You are correct about that.
Yeah, and Okafor is less, I believe.
Yep, Okafor 23.
Yeah, exactly. So, I guess my point being, I think they stick with him. I have him projected for 31 minutes tonight. I think they go back there. It's a back-to-back, so always, I think, a little less inclined to run out veterans, which is the other guys, as opposed to, rookies. I don't think they're trying to win anymore. I think that of all the guys who are injured, I think at least two of them could get out there if this was the playoffs or something. But at this point, they're like, okay, we're going to have to get rid of Anthony Davis. We're clearly not going to contend for shit this year. Maybe not next year. Let's start moving that draft pick the hell better. And so they're going to be like that. I think they let him play a lot. He looked really good yesterday. He played almost the whole goddamn second half. I think that's apropos of something. $3,100 min price, FanDuel min price Yahoo. I kind of like Kenrich as a punt here, and we don't project him for a ton of ownership because I think people, understandably, have concern that, who the hell? Is this shit for real? Was that just but that game wasn't a blowout. They won that game. And he was out there the whole damn second half. So
yeah, working hard.
I'm cautiously optimistic. The matchup isn't thrilling, but again, he costs basically nothing. So yeah. But yeah, that whole game looks juicy. Even Denver, I'm trying to think of someone on Denver who I don't like. Nope. No one on Denver I don't like.
Us? Are you thinking Millsap's got a little more spring in his legs after our debate about him last week?
I don't care. It's 30 minutes against a wretched Pelicans team. They're on the road, so it should be closer because they're in New Orleans. It just costs $5,000 flat. You get these random 40, 45, 50-point games out of Millsap once in a while. Absolutely no reason it can't happen here.
Yeah.
Especially some sites where he just prices in really nicely. I like Millsap. He's not a core piece, but any amount of Millsap you get, I'm absolutely fine with. Gary Harris, if we get news that he's playing. Will Barton is going to, basically start at point guard, but can be played at the sticky small forward position, basically everywhere. Both Monty Morris and Malik Beasley will see, depending on Harris's availability, either 22 and 24 minutes or 26 and 28 minutes at very reasonable low to mid 4 prices. I think Monty's actually 39 on FanDuel. There's a ceiling there. A blowout, certainly not impossible here. I mean, you literally have this is one of the worst injury bug teams I can recall ever. They're literally missing 5 of their top 6, who are clearly their top 6 players. Their top 6 players are the 5 guys who are out in Drew, clearly. So they're missing 5 of their top 6. That's pretty goddamn rare. So, I mean, this team should struggle. And Denver is, between legit to extraordinary and was in first place for a while. And, even in New Orleans, I can't say I'd be surprised if they got absolutely demolished at home. All the various bench guys in this game become very interesting. So I like Mason Plumlee, $3,900. Certainly not dead if the game doesn't blow out. Smash spot if it does. There's not many players on Denver I don't like out of their top 8 at least. So, you want Gary Harris out because it just makes everyone a little better. Gary Harris, very playable as small forward on FanDuel. Makes a really interesting Barton punt if he's out. But yeah, this is as good of a spot as you're going to get for Denver. And again, you look at the ownership, and I'm not saying that any of these New Orleans guys who we have projected aren't really good, but our top 3 owned players are Pelicans. Our highest owned guy on Denver is 7th, and then the next one is not on the front page. So, yeah, I really like these Denver guys at their ownership. Like I just reloaded the front page. The only Denver guy on the front page is Jokic, which seems crackers to me. Not that Jokic.
I'm with you on there. I'm very big on Jokic and Beasley in particular.
Sure.
And then I think if Harris is rolled out, Millsap becomes a little more appealing to me.
Sure.
Obviously Barton as well. But Beasley and Jokic, I definitely have a lot of today. One guy you didn't mention on the Pelican side, I just want to see if that was an incidental slip up or not. Tim Frazier, are you buying in? I know the guys on the deeper dive were perhaps a little bit less sold on his minutes run. They think it was more because they were just hitting a run at that moment. I think it was because he was playing a lot better than Frank Jackson in terms of playing within the system, creating opportunities for other guys. So I wouldn't be surprised if Frazier got the start tonight, but you're a Frank Jackson guy. I know you've been a fan of his since the preseason. What are you thinking about that backcourt rotation?
I mean, there's that. And I was a Tim Frazier guy for a while as well. Tim Frazier is an elite assist guy. He is an incredibly good passer. That's it. He's a shit defender. He's not an incredibly good shooter. Like, he's had 40, 50 fantasy point games in the past, usually fueled by assists. But he's, he lost his spot to Frank Jackson. So he had a slightly better game yesterday in less time, and that's very relevant. I would be shocked if he started. I mean, he lost his spot based on months of play. So if based on the 20 minutes Tim Frazier played yesterday, Frank Jackson loses his starting spot to him, I'd be really, really surprised. I would give you 10-1 odds on that bet. If you want to make it right now, I'll bet you $10 from you for $100 from me. Frank Jackson starts tonight. Like I would be shocked if that happened, based on how long that was. There's the Heat starting lineup, which is Ellington getting the start again. So if you had Tyler Johnson, some concern there.
Ooh, yeah, questionable. Tyler Johnson was going to try to play, but apparently not looking good. Do you think that means that Tyler Johnson's ruled out? Or
I know nothing other than the fact that we're seeing that as a starting lineup. I would expect if he is playing for him to quite possibly start. Ellington, I guess, shot well in the last. Ellington's one of those guys I just never want to play because you need really stupid things to happen for the upside. Like, it's Chicago, so if I'm going to do it, I guess this is the spot. But he doesn't do anything but shoot. I mean, before that last game, people are like, what about Ellington? I'm like, I was pretty down on him, and he shot pretty well and had 19 points and a rebound or something. He gets like 2 points of peripheral. So you literally need 30 points of points for it to work out. Wade's out, but I would rather Dion Waiters if I'm going to, make that kind of play there without D-Wade.
Yeah, Waiters intrigues me a little bit too. And we had him as being a little higher owned earlier in the day, and I think he's come down a bit. So I think that's an interesting move there. Let's see. What other games do we need to hit on here? Actually, tell me, Eddie, another game that you want to talk about. How about Boston? Actually, talk to me about Boston here. We got, obviously, Terry Rozier filling in again as a starting point guard for Kyrie Irving. Jaylen Brown expected to pick up some more ownership here when people have finally figured out that Jaylen Brown will shoot whenever there's anybody leaving shots behind by being out of the lineup. Al Horford's been rolling recently. How are you feeling about the Celtics again?
Yeah, I think Brown has been under-owned the last couple of times. It's good to see people finally coming around on that. You were looking at, Kyrie was in, he scored 20. Kyrie went out, he scored 30. Kyrie came back in, he scored 20. Kyrie went out, he scored 30. Like, he's just 4,700, especially on FanDuel, obviously, where it's on the upper edge of droppable, but also just when it's the same price as DK is a better deal. $4,700 Jaylen Brown is nice. The issue is I really like spending up at shooting guard. Like, I really like Luka, as we've alluded to, and I really like Drew Holiday, and, well, okay, they both play shooting guard. And there's not a lot of other spend-ups I like. And there's a couple centers I like almost as much as Jokic. Not raw points, but, points per dollar and their ability to hit a ceiling for them in the matchups they're in. So it's hard for me to see building a lot of him. But $4,700 Jaylen Brown makes a ton of sense. Terry Rozier, still too cheap on Yahoo, where he's 21, which is less than 61 and 65 on the other two main sites. I'm a fan of the rest of the guys on this team. Horford probably the next level interest for me. The prices obviously come up. DK a little bit more reasonable. There is certainly a decent ceiling there. Again, the last couple times these teams played, Zeller was in there, so it's just a very different thing. I don't think Gordon Hayward is out of play in tournaments. I don't like him. He'll probably be shit and watch the game, but his couple monster games did come with Kyrie out, so whatever you think, his odds of a ceiling game are, and say you thought they were 1%, I'd say they're 3% now because Kyrie isn't playing, so if you ever wanted to do that, this seems to be the spot. And again, small forwards being shit. Ira Winderman tweeting that Ellington starting, which likely means Tyler Johnson is out. And I do think that was probably the most likely scenario. So if you had exposed yourself to Tyler, you may want to put it back in your pants.
Let's see. Let's talk a little bit about this Atlanta-Sacramento game here, because that's one, obviously the highest total on the slate today. Some people I've heard across the industry talking about Atlanta perhaps being a little too overpriced for them, but this does seem like a game stack where it has some upside if you do force and try to get above the field on ownership, because it's not very highly owned according to our projections at Osmo.com. Bogdan Bogdanovic also projected to be the highest owned player, one of the highest owned players on the slate. He's come down a little bit. How are you feeling, Eddie, about this game? It seems like it maybe could be a trap, but I find it more appealing than not.
Yes, I find it more appealing than not. Kent Bazemore coming back screws everything up. Kent Bazemore coming back and playing 20 minutes, I think the most come off Bembry. Now, that's my best guess, but if he plays 20 minutes, I have Bembry losing about half of that. That's my best guess. But it's Bembry or Horder or Lynn or or Torian Prince. It just makes all those guys a little more, okay. I was already nervous because this is already an Atlanta team that was running pretty deep. Most of these guys were getting high 20s in minutes anyway. Now, those 20 minutes have to come from somewhere, so the wings are all sorts of screwed up. I still like Trae Young. Without reservation, I don't think it affects him much, if at all. I still like Dedmon. I still like John Collins. Probably doesn't affect those three guys. But the other six guys I just mentioned, all the way from Jeremy Lin to all those wings I just mentioned, there's now another degree of uncertainty there. So they're all still playable in tournaments in what does very likely seem to be a track meet. This is the comeback between these two teams. Earlier this year, they played. Sacramento won by 30, I think, and the Hawks still scored 115. It was like 145 to 118 or some, like, they kicked their ass and the Hawks still put up a very big number. But I'm much more excited about the Kings than the Hawks. And that being said, the Kings also run a pretty deep lineup at this point. But compared to price and what you expect to get out of them, I'd be a little more excited about most of the Kings players. In that aforementioned game, that was De'Aaron Fox's career best game. That was the 70 whatever the hell fantasy points with his 30, 15, points, and 10 triple-double or whatever it was. So, and he's got an ownership showing that some number of people remember that, and it's clearly just a phenomenal spot for him. Buddy Hield obviously ridiculously too cheap on FanDuel. Bogdan Bogdanovic obviously ridiculously too cheap on DraftKings. Don't mind Willie in tournaments. Bagley, too cheap on DK also. FanDuel, really tough to get there. DK, I'm fine with it. Again, his minutes are all the hell over the place. Like, Nemanja Bjelica is 3,900 some places. He's literally going to play 0 to 30 minutes. If he didn't play, I wouldn't be surprised at all with everyone healthy. If he went back to playing, like, he literally played 32 minutes 2 games ago, apropos of nothing. No one extra was out. And just, I guess he'll play 32 minutes today, so.
Yeah, I'm with you on there. I think Bogdan Bogdanovic, I'm comfortable matching the field with as a higher owned guy. Bagley worries me a little bit, and the deeper dive guys again talked about that at some length and how I don't think he's broken 40 points when he's seen under 30 minutes or something. There was had some number that was very helpful, which probably would have been good if I retained that completely. But Bagley's a guy who always jumps out in projections, but I feel like the ceiling isn't really there. The minutes aren't there. They keep forcing Bjelica back in, but not giving Bjelica enough run to be useful. Kind of scares me a little bit there with Bagley in particular.
Yeah. I think that's an appropriate level of concern when talking about Bagels there. At 5,400, there's still a ceiling on top of it, but I find him much less appealing than Bogdan, for example. But again, he's going to be lower owned. There's other guys. Like, I like playing I don't know. You can save $1,100. A guy I like to play in tournaments on DraftKings tonight would be Bam Adebayo at $4,300. I don't know what you're going to get out of Whiteside, but even if you tell me that they split the time and I get 24 minutes out of Adebayo, I'll take that in tournaments against Chicago. I'd rather not have Robin Lopez starting, but again, Whiteside's going to start, so Adebayo will get a lot of his time against Portis, which is much, much better than against Rolo. So, that's something I think I'd kind of rather try, but again, very ambivalent actually on Bagley. Ownership and prices is about where it should be. FanDuel, I think you'd appropriately want to get away from it.
We're about to do the halftime Daddy Likes because we are at about half the show. Presented by the promo code Live Before Lock on Osmo.com. Get 50% off of your first month. We did have some news just come through about a minute ago. Zach LaVine ruled out Wednesday. What are we doing with the Bulls now? Obviously, it increases the blowout risk a little bit there with that game in Miami, but who's going to step up, do you think?
Yeah, Markkanen is the first guy you want to look at here. I like Markkanen well more than Chris Dunn, which would be the other person you would want to pivot to. It doesn't do anything for Jabari Parker. It'll be interesting to see who they start. There's a number of places they can go here. I think they will start Ryan Arcidiacono. That is my best guess. I think they run him out there next to Dunn in this matchup. Yes, LaVine out. Thank you. It's still a shit matchup, but I now legitimately like Markkanen. I'm slightly more excited for Portis, although he's priced not brilliantly. And there's more of a concern for a blowout. And slightly worse matchup for the backcourt members of the Heat because LaVine is really bad at defense. But
I would throw Wayne Selden in there too. I feel like he's a guy who would love to get some extra shots based on what he's done in Memphis.
He's still fine on FanDuel. He's too risky for me to run anywhere where I'm just stuck with that score. But like 38 or whatever the number is on FanDuel, I still think I don't want it next to Monty Morris at 39. A couple other guys there, but it's certainly in plays in tournaments. I'd have no issue seeing Wayne Selden at this point because he should play 30 minutes now, and he should start at the 3. We still need to figure out who's going to start at the 2 because again Hutchinson is still out.
All right, let's go to our ownership rankings or ownership projections rather at Osmo.com. Again, 50% off your first month there with promo code Live Before Lock. Get these ownership projections as well as Eddie's rankings, Osmo's rankings. Of course, he's the top player in the world for good reason. And the projections from Josh Engelman, and you just plug right into Fantasy Cruncher, get ahead of the field, hopefully. So go check it out now. 50% off promo code Live Before Lock. We talked about this guy a little bit before, Eddie, but he is number 1 on the hit list. Jaleel Okafor, 45% projected ownership on DraftKings. How does Daddy feel about it?
Yeah, I guess Daddy slightly dislikes it. That's slightly higher than I think I would like to play. If we actually just got an update. It now says 42, so again, it tends to normalize for us. That is about the appropriate number. So Daddy is ambivalent. Daddy is waking up from a nap and,
I'm not going to make the joke. It's too early in the show still to make a Father's Morning Wood joke.
But apparently not, because you did. But go ahead.
I know. I felt like not committing all the way to it gave me that free passageway in between. But as Eddie mentioned, we did just get an ownership update, by the way. So if you are a premium member, go check it out now. Number 2 now on the list, Drew Holiday at 29%. How does Daddy feel about it?
I like it. I'd probably want to be over that. It's hard to imagine him, abjectly failing here. You want Gary Harris to be out, making the matchup slightly easier for him. But the backcourt's, minus some guys in Denver, it should make it a little bit easier. Just so many ways he can get there. Again, 6 blocks in the last game. Can shoot when he needs to, but just really safe. And there is, a 60-point upside. So at 29% we have. I think I would have north of 30. So even with how much I like Luka. Now, in fairness, we have Luka a full 10% less. I would rather play Luka at this point. I have those two guys projected almost identically. I actually have Luka a point higher, I think. And if we have Luka under 20 and Drew just under 30, I would rather have Luka Doncic. That being said, I would probably have like 45 Luka and 35 Drew. They're two guys I would have a real big share of. So, yeah.
Somebody actually asked while you're mentioning that, for cash, would it also be Luka over Drew?
It's a good question. I'll actually say no to that. For cash, I would stick with Drew. I find it a little more likely Luka fails. Not very, but just more options there. Like, Drew just has to carry so much right now. Like, could you get a Dennis Smith / Harrison Barnes / DeAndre Jordan game, and you only get 38 out of, Luka before they wreck the Knicks by 100? You know what I'm saying? So I think I probably would actually slightly prefer Drew in cash. But again, very close, and I'm certainly not complaining if anyone has Luka in cash. Luka's just mispriced. He's just Luka's like a $9,600 player right now, so him in the eights anywhere is just way too good.
Number 3 on the ownership rankings, the third part of the big three of New Orleans, Darius Miller, 29% also.
Yeah, he is the Reggie Miller of their big three. Yeah,
I'd say the Real.
I mean, he's even me liking Kenrich to play 30 minutes, and even me, that comes mostly off Solomon Hill more than anyone else. So I am much lower on Solomon Hill than I was, for example, say yesterday. Darius Miller, I still think plays about 38 minutes, and $100 a minute is still a good price no matter who you are. So yeah, he's chalky. $3,800 chalk has been a real nightmare recently, by the way. $3,800 has been the price that fails you. So just be aware, it's the price that got Beasley, it's the price that got Burke. Could be the price that gets Darius here, but yes, I'm kidding. Yeah. That's a joke. I'm just mentioning.
Also, $100 a minute, so that's it's a whole different ballgame.
That's what she said.
Number 4 on the list of ownership, Bogdan Bogdanović dropped down to 28% projected ownership. How does Daddy feel about it?
Yeah, girls got to make a living. Bogdan, yeah, 28. That's tough because, again, I'm running out of wing positions, but objectively too cheap. I still think I would be slightly over that as well. That's just also a misprice. So I'll go with Daddy likes that too. I think I'd be on top of that number.
All right, and number 5, rounding it out, Nikola Jokic, 21% projected ownership. Actually tied with Jaylen Brown, so they could both share that honor.
Yeah, that's really weird. I think I would be over on 5 out of the top 6 there. So apparently it's eating chalk for me. I took the pass on Okafor. And all the other guys, I think I would end up over those numbers if I was building any significant number of lineups.
I concur.
I don't get people who I mean, if Rose is out, and I don't believe we have that news, I only like Jokic like 8 points more than Towns. I mean, I've had a lot of people like, oh, I love Towns tonight. Why? Like, it's worst possible spot for him, literally. It's actually versus Marc Gasol is his worst possible split. Versus Memphis is his worst possible split. I obviously really like him since Butler out of town, all the time Teague has been injured, all the time Rose has been injured. There's just a massive amount of usage. And if Rose is out, I still like him plenty. But where he's basically dollar per dollar the same price as Jokic, I don't have that terribly close. And if Rose is in, I want literally none. I'll just let it go. Now, thankfully, the ownership is much lower. Earlier today, people were talking like he was going to be somewhat chalky. We have him at 13%, but I'm much less interested in Karl-Anthony Towns than I am Jokic.
All right, there we go. So those are the ownership projections at Osmo.com. Check them out now, 50% off with promo code Live Before Lock. Since you're talking T-Wolves, give me your Jared Bayless thoughts. And also give me your Andrew Wiggins thoughts. He's been shooting 23 times a game for the last 3 years. And obviously different teams there, though he did play Utah twice in there. He intrigues me a bit. And Bayless, I don't mind either, though. Kanan could cut into his minutes a little bit. But tell me what your thoughts are on the other Wolves.
Yeah, Wiggins, I mean, price has finally come up to being a slightly more reasonable spot, and now he goes into a really shitty matchup. Again, the most likely outcome is someone on this team ends up being good. It's really hard to imagine that Bayless and Wiggins, like if Rose is in, I'm fine having no one on this team. I really don't want to deal with the Memphis headache, and that's enough of it where it can get spread around, and no one actually needs to be good. $5,000 for Bayless at this point. He's the last man standing at point guard, so he's fine. It's a very good cash play. Really hard to imagine he's going to abjectly fail you. Tournament upside versus Memphis. If Rose is back, no, none for me, thanks. I'd rather run Rose at 6K if I was going to run one of those guys. Towns, again, if he's out there with Taj and Bayless, and like there's enough usage there that, yeah, he can still throw up a 60 burger. We saw it in what's not a great matchup, but against he's been good against Gobert like twice this year. So while the matchup with Gasol is literally basically his worst possible matchup, I guess I should quantify that a little bit. I think his career best in like 8 or 9 games against a Marc Gasol-led Memphis team is like 46 or something like that. It's his best DraftKings total ever. Now, I have him projected for north of that today. I have him projected for, I think, 50.2 or something right now. 50.2.
Yeah, I'm at 49.2, so I'm with you.
So, yeah, I'm just fine with him. This is obviously a spot, and that's much more important than the history and much more important than the match, and that's fine. But, he's not cheap. Like, he's whatever 10-9 and 11-2 or something. So I need 65 out of him to be happy, and I just think it's infinitely more likely you get out of Jokic, who isn't that much more highly owned at like 21 versus 13%, and just could happen. But I'll just go with the guy in the amazing spot as opposed to the guy in the worst possible spot. And it's not like Jokic is in that dissimilar of a situation. Like, you've both got one, Barton and Wiggins guys who are still big usage guys out there on the wings. You've got backup point guards in there for you with your starting point guard. Like, they're not that dissimilar situations. And then you have Jokic, who I like a little more in a vacuum anyway, and I'm a huge Towns fan, but just as far as a producer and a fantasy player, in literally about the best possible spot he could have, and Towns literally in the worst. So, I still think Towns outscores Jokic 30 to 35% of the time, but that's for the ownership disparity is not nearly great enough that I wouldn't just suck it up and go with Joker.
Also, I think you may have mentioned that Rose was questionable, but he is officially out as of 9 minutes ago. People in the chat
I didn't know that. So then now I'm fully like, okay, that's fine. Like, there's just the point at which he's gonna lead the goddamn team. So, I would bump the projection up now towards 53 or so, which is pretty nice. I have Jokic at like 56, so much more tolerable of it. I like Bayless more now, obviously. Still don't love him. Prices come up. Not a super upside guy. But it would come down to ownership. I wouldn't have any issue with that. Wouldn't have an issue with Wiggins in tournaments. But, one of those guys will be good. So they're just fine. I like, guys on the Heat. I would rather, with Wade out especially, Winslow or Waiters or Josh Richardson, who's been good against them both times this year. Millsap, we talked about Barton. There's just sort of guys I would rather go to than Wiggins, just in those wing positions. But Wiggins is just fine in tournaments. Having Rose out makes all those guys just fine. If Rose had been in, now I'm sort of having the production or quartering the production between those four guys in a really shitty matchup. But there's a real chance no one is good. Now, one of them's going to get there. Either Bayless will get 35 or Wiggins will get 45 or Towns will get 60. One of those guys is going to get there. So I feel okay about it. If you'd have had Rose in, there's a real chance that just it all sort of fell to shit.
Some extra news. Also, Jaren Jackson is saying he's going to play. Does that affect anything for you? Do you have any interest in him?
I like Marcus Gasol a little bit less. I always have interest in him, and this matchup is pretty good. He's always fine for me in tournaments. He can just do steals, blocks, threes, and just enough of those high integer scoring outputs that he can spike a tournament upside. So in this matchup especially, I like him just fine in tournaments. I like Marcus Gasol a little bit less, who Marcus Gasol is like, I think, 50 and 55 in his last two games against Towns. It's one of his better matchups. Both of those are this year, by the way. So, had some interest in Gasol, who's also been in good form recently. With Jaren Jackson back in, that is muted a little bit. Kyle Anderson is back as well, which makes him interesting where he's, priced in the 4s as opposed to he's the 5s on FanDuel. Probably rather look elsewhere there on that team. You can still Justin Holiday, especially on Yahoo, where he's very nicely priced. I like James Johnson. Derek Jones Jr. unfortunate injury makes him a little more solid. Him at the minimum on Yahoo and 39 on FanDuel against a Chicago team. I do think there's a real upside there, so I like going with that. Miles Turner is one of my favorite centers tonight. It's just an incredibly good matchup for him, and now we're missing a couple guys on that team, and I have him projected for north of 40. Which would be a big step off versus the first two games against Washington this year where he had around 50. So I'm tapering that quite a bit, and still at 7,300 on FanDuel. If I'm not playing Jokic, he's one of the guys I'd really want to have some exposure to. Still don't mind Noah Vonleh at 6,000. That still on either of the main sites makes a ton of sense for him. Knox or Prince on FanDuel.
Moses got through. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, and I just saw a question flash, Knox or Prince. I would play Knox over Prince. I'm not thrilled to play either of those guys. But Prince, I'm just more worried about the baseboard minutes impact. So I don't know if I can project him for 30 anymore. I think it's like 24 or 25. So just because of the fact that I expect Knox to get more time, almost certainly, I'll go with Knox.
I'm not sure if this is just what you were answering, but it might be a similar question. Since you shared concerns about Darius Miller, do you have any other suggestions for value at 3,800 or less?
Yeah, was like yesterday was the argument on 3,800 with Rondé Hollis Jefferson and eventually it was Nerlens, so I think it might have been $100.
Popular price points. The hottest club in New York is the $3,800 or less on DraftKings.
The hottest club in New York is. He's out. He's shit. I don't really want Sumner in my life. Bridges, the other Bridges for 3,800 was brilliant yesterday. He gave you 40 something. He won lots of money. Don't really want MKG tonight. In tournaments, I'd be fine playing Maxi Kleber instead. I don't dislike Darius Miller. I'm worried about Solomon Hill. Darius Miller, I think, is just great at 3,800. By the way, like I think Kenrich plays a lot at 3,100, but that I think most of the time comes off Solomon Hill, not Darius Miller, as we just saw yesterday. So
Darius Miller gets his from Etuan being out.
Yeah. Mara Hazonia is 35. That's another place you could go.
He's the only one I have on DK.
Yeah,
in that price range.
That's Frank Jackson at 34. I do like Frank Jackson more than as I think I was pretty clear about. More than Tim Frazier, just because minutes. I still think you get somewhere near 30 minutes of Frank Jackson, somewhere near 20 minutes of Tim Frazier. And Tim Frazier is a better point per minute guy. Again, Frank Jackson has very few minutes by which to make this, and I don't have it up in front of me, but I'm pretty sure, Frank Jackson is, in his career, like, 0.7 fantasy points per minute. I think Tim Frazier is somewhere closer to 0.8. But we're talking about 10 extra minutes. And again, a lot of the Frank Jackson time and the Tim Frazier time has come with better players around them. Like you're now they're running with more scrubs, so those numbers are going to come up.
People in the chat are saying Gary Harris has been ruled in, I think. Let me just confirm. Yep, Gary Harris is available to play. How does that affect things for you, if at all, for the Nuggets there in New Orleans?
Arcidiacono will start. Hey, how about that? He's not out of play, by the way. I think he plays 28, 30 minutes. He's $3,200 on DK. It's probably a little safer than Kenrich Williams for $100 more. Bit less of an upside, brutal matchup, so certainly not excited about it, but there's that. Gary Harris himself now is a really strong play. I think he plays 28 minutes, something like that. The matchup is ideal. He's small forward, I think, on FanDuel still. So I like having some exposure to Gary Harris himself. Should make you much more concerned about your Malik Beasley minutes. Still possible at his price, but be a little less excited about Beasles in my life. A little less about Monty Morris, though a larger hit to Beasley than Monty, who will play the backup point still. A little bit of a hit to Barton. Little bit of a disadvantage to Drew and Frank and those guys too, because Gary's a better defender than the guys he'll be replacing. But not a massive change. No need to reinvent the wheel.
All right, let's take some questions here. Premium Slack, of course, gets first dibs. Get in there. That promo code live before lock. Who would be the better game stack for you on DK for a tournament? New Orleans or Sacramento?
I think I would slightly rather stack Sacramento. Again, when you say game stack, I'm wondering if we're also including Denver and Atlanta in that question. But either way, I would slightly rather with the later game.
Who would be your favorite power forward under 6,300 on FanDuel?
Might be Bobby Portis at 59, because there's like nothing between I looked at this not that long ago. There's like nothing between Portis and Millsap at 5 flat, I think. But under 60 what?
6,300.
Okay, so that actually opens up a few guys there. That gives you Bagley, Jackson, Thad, and Noah. Especially if you don't have Miles Turner in cash. I really don't dislike any of those guys in tournaments. Bagley is probably my least favorite of them. Although he's in the best game there. That's very interesting for me. Yeah, that's really, really close for me. I think In cash there, I will probably play Thad Young barely. In tournaments, I don't mind Bagley, Jaren Jackson, or Vonleh, but I will, for the moment, rank them Vonleh slightly more than Jaren Jackson Jr., slightly more than Marvin Bagley. So I'll go Thad in cash and Vonleh in tournaments.
Would you go Jabari Parker or Darius Miller for FanDuel cash?
It depends a little bit on your other punts and how likely they are to get 20 and not get dropped in cash. So it's got a little bit to do with your lineup construction. But in a vacuum, I'll generally be taking Darius Miller there. You're looking at literally twice as many minutes. I can't get away from that. Don't get me wrong, Jabari Parker has an upside. In tournaments, I'm fine with Jabari Parker, but in cash, I'm pretty sure I'm sticking with Darius Miller most of the time there.
All right. Would you go Williams and Fox or Miller and Turner for a DK GPP? Williams.
Okay, there's at least 3 Williams playing.
I feel like Williams. I was really trying to figure out which Williams it was, but you gotta. I think if you give it a common last name like that.
Who are the other 2?
Williams and Fox or Miller and Turner. So we got three out of the 4, I think.
Okay, he means Kenrich Williams then.
Oh, okay, sure. Ooh. That's deep to go for your Williams if you're going to call him out by no initial or no first name.
Yeah. I'll go with the second one.
I'd go with Herb Williams, personally.
Yeah. There are 6 playing today. Troy, CJ, Kenrich, Bob, Marvin are all out there. So there's maybe just 5. But there's some number of Williamses out there. So, yeah, Serena and Venus, no. But no Ted. But lots of Williams.
We're going Big Williams style today, huh?
Oh, Big Willie style. I like it.
Fox and Barton or Lillard and Harris for FanDuel cash?
Fox and Barton, not close.
Nurkic probably out, according to this guy's sources, who has no sources, so that's not helpful.
I find that very interesting information if you had sources. There's a little bit of guesswork in who the hell is going to take over if that is the case. This would be the first game this year that he would have missed. I'm almost positive. So, Porter starting. Ugh. Jesus Christ. I like everyone. Like, it's already a terrible matchup, and I liked him more coming off the bench, and it kind of screws everyone. There's normally you get a shift like that, and I turn around and it makes you like somebody more, but I guess I slightly like Jeff Green more coming off the bench. He's going to be playing a lot of time with Brad Beal anyway, who's going to play 40 minutes, but it's not a good spot. You're forcing if you're playing a lot of Wizards. Like, if you have an Otto Porter, that's fine. He's the DK price is a little terrible. He's 7K on FanDuel. I would rather play Richardson or Justice or Harris or Barton or a lot of other guys before I got there. Before I got to Otto versus Indiana. So, yeah, I guess I like Jeff Green a little bit more with that news. That would be it.
Would you go Lowry and Darius Miller or Marcus Morris and Noah Vonleh in cash?
The first one, no. With Lavina, and I'll go with the former of those 2.
Would you go Baines and Horford or Frank Jackson and De'Aaron Fox for DK cash?
Jackson and Fox.
Porter. Thoughts on Finney Smith? I have a feeling he breaks the slate from our guy Dave, who is very smart, but apparently perhaps not today about Finney Smith.
Yeah, I have a noted dislike for Dorian Finney-Smith. Like, he's playing the Knicks, and if Dennis Smith was still out, I'd like it a little bit more. If more guys were out other than the obvious Beret, etc. On FanDuel, where he's droppable, I think it's fine. It's a guy who's going to get 20-plus minutes against the Knicks, so if there's a spot in which he's going to randomly spike 30, 35, which he does maybe 4 times a year, this could be it. But, yeah, I wouldn't wet my pants.
Yeah, I think you got to see Barnes out before you could play Finney Smith. And I've actually fought for Finney Smith once on the show. Not today, though. It's gotta Got to be a little more minutes.
I think it was with me, and I think I shat on him, and I seem to recall him being terrible. I think I won. I'm not sure.
No, that one he had a good day that time, but the other times he's been terrible. That was the one time he's been good this year.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, because that's one of my Finney Smith and what was his name? The guy who was on the Cavs this year, Jalen Jones. Those two guys last year I won like pretty good money playing whenever Barnes was out, so that's why I know my Finney Smiths, not my ABC. With perhaps or possibly no Tyler, Derek Jones, and Wade, how do you like waiters? We talked about this a little bit, but if you want to give your Heat guy thoughts one more time, Eddie.
Yeah, I like him. He's cheap enough where he can get on top of that. He's going to play, I'll give him 25 minutes at this point. Now, it has not been consistent. The Heat are a very full roster, but minus those two guys, I think you're getting into the mid to maybe even the high. I think I seem to recall waiters having a random 29-minute game in there. I could be wrong. Let me I don't want to speak out of school here, but that would portend even more of a potential upside. I seem to remember 28. I was close. Back down to 17 last game against the Knicks and 6 fantasy points in there. So obviously it's just tournaments. But I never met a shot he didn't like. So would much rather than Dorian Finney-Smith. I'll put it that way. Similarly, guys who need to get there, but just a better player, a better fantasy producer, and an equally good matchup. For me against Chicago as opposed to versus the Knicks. I'm feeling still fine about that.
Apparently Tyler Johnson's out on the layup line, and it looks like he's moving well. So does that affect anything if, let's say, he's available, but he's only playing 20-something minutes off the bench?
Yes, you would now like everybody a little bit less who's coming off the bench. You probably shouldn't have been playing Kelly Olynyk anyway. But Waiters being a guy who I would go from being comfortable having 5% of to going down to having 1 or 2% of just in case he gets stupid hot in his minutes.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Brown and Bagley or Winslow and Bam? Speaking of Heat guys for DK Cash and GPPs, I guess.
Brown, Jalen, and Bagley or Winslow and Bam. It has to be Brown and Bagley and Cash. I'd probably play Winslow and Bam in tournaments.
Burke and Bam or Frank Jackson and Noah Vonleh for DK Cash?
For Cash, I gotta go with the second one. I can't trade Burke and Cash. People sleeping tonight on Beal going up against Sumner. Thoughts? Sumner isn't a dreadful defender. He's inexperienced and he's mentally not there, but he's long and enough of a difficulty. It's just pace and I'm fine with Beal in tournaments. He gets sandwiched between and will be less on than probably even Donovan and certainly Luka and Drew. So 6% Beal I think is just fine in tournaments. It's any night. If the game stays close, he can randomly throw up 60. So I'm fine seeing Brad Beal in somebody's lineup, but the matchup is still overall pretty bad, even with Sumner being out there for a lot of time.
Monty Morris moving into the starting lineup for Torrey Craig. Any impact on anything for you?
Yeah, I like him even more, especially FanDuel. Just because I think the minutes are more there for him at this point. I do think that ends up being relevant. I think Craig ends up actually losing significant minutes to him. So this isn't really one of those times where it's like, he's moving from the bench to starting, but he's still going to play the same number of minutes, say, a la, Otto Porter. I actually do think this gives him 4 or 5 minutes. So I like Monty Morris a fair amount at this point. And again, FanDuel is 3,900 and a shooting guard, I believe. So, Monte, Daddy likes.
Clears a little usage for Malik Beasley in that second unit, too.
That works fine as well.
Knox, Prince, or Batum in a FanDuel GPP?
Knox.
Ugly group.
Yeah. I don't like playing any of those 3 guys, but small forward is shit, so you shouldn't feel bad about it. Gary Harris, by the way, is the answer to that question. If you have $100 over the most of those other 3 guys, so if you have $100 and can get it, because I think the most of those guys was 51, I believe. Gary Harris is 52, so the answer to your question is Gary Harris if you have a hundy. If you don't have a hundy, bad luck. You wish you had a hundy.
With the Gary Harris news, what are your thoughts on a pivot from Malik Beasley to Shumpert for DK? I would stick with Beasley personally.
I would too.
Yeah,
especially on DK. Shump on FanDuel, it would now becomes an interesting argument for me, but especially on DK, I'm absolutely sticking that way.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Beasley. I think actually Harris being in might give Beasley a little bit less ownership, which makes me like Beasley a little more. I think he's a good gunner when he gets going. Winslow or Ariza for a DK GPP?
Winslow.
I would agree there. Doncic and Okafor or Drew and Horford for a FanDuel GPP? It's a good group.
Doncic and Okafor.
Yeah, I would agree. It's close. It's a close one though. I have a lot of all four of those guys today.
Yeah, that's definitely. I'm not objecting to either one of those pairings that you determined to go with.
Monty and Bam or Buddy and Kenrick Williams for a FanDuel GPP?
Monty and Bam at this point. Monty is the best leverage point we have now. At the time that came out, that's the. Basically at 7 o'clock every day, there's like, this was the best guy in the slate. It may work, it may not work. A couple days ago, it was 1%. Kevin Knox didn't quite get there, but wasn't terrible. Yeah, Monty is the best leverage point we have versus the field and the expected ownership right
now. Jackson, Frazier, or Archie-Diacono in a FanDuel GPP?
Probably Archie-Diacono at this point. It's interesting. Probably Archie-Diacono for me. Then Jackson, then Frazier. I don't terribly love any of them, but again, they're all very good on FanDuel. So I guess I'll take that back actually. But probably at this point, I'll go for 2% Archie-Diacono as opposed to 16 Frazier and 19 Jackson or something. I have a feeling are going to be about the numbers. So I'll go with the 2%er there as opposed to the other guys.
Okafor and Markkanen or Jokic and a punt for a FanDuel GPP?
Okafor and Markkanen. Without Levine in there, Okafor may take just a really stupid amount of shots. So.
All right, we should be locked now. So let's see.
I think about 20 seconds actually.
Oh,
Oh no, you're right. We are there. I had some really weird lag where I was looking at the countdown clock on DK, and it said 30:20, and then I clicked a button and went to 29:30. I'm like, okay, I guess somehow.
Sue them. They prevented you from entering a lineup. Let's go. Class action lawsuit.
I'll try.
We have proof.
But you haven't played in like 2 years. Yeah, but I was trying.
But I deserve the freedom to. I'm an American.
I should have had the option.
I actually agree. All right, let's see what Daddy likes. America's favorite game, of course. They're spoiled by getting it twice in one show each day now, but that's what we like to do. We like to pamper you all like little sugar babies.
The 425K mini hang time, which again,
that's a stupid name, by the way. I know I've defended their names and tried to find logic in them. I hate that name.
That one, mini. Why is it mini? I don't understand.
Because there's like $1,000 one or $100 one.
But it was a $10 entry.
Yeah, so then like there's the hang time then, which would be like the 10x version of it, and then maybe like a super hang time or whatever. That's
right,
like
but this is 425K. That's like as large as most of the hang times that are whatever.
That's just what they do.
I just don't understand where the appellation, the prefix of mini comes from. There is where I'm a little confuzzled. But
it's always a delicate subject for any man. You don't want to hear that word.
Confuzzled
or micro. Or fun size.
Most owned guy. Oh, it feels good. Luka Doncic, 35%.
Ooh, that came up, huh?
that got real in a hurry.
Might be because of my new video series, The Four Corners, which I pumped him up today on our YouTube.
I watched your video. I watched it.
Thanks, Eddie.
You want to watch my video? This is the worst video ever.
That was me. That was me standing outside begging people to watch.
No, it randomly popped on my Twitter. I'm like, this is a good 2-minute break from work. Let's watch it. It was like 8 minutes or something. It was really good. I thought it was informative and entertaining.
We're trying to do some short form content. We'll see how it works schedule wise, but I think we might be doing those daily next week. We'll see how it shakes out.
I should do some of those. We're gonna.
We could be the short video boys.
God,
our viral DFS videos will sweep the nation.
Somebody trolling in chat said Fox out and then kidding. I'll ban him or that fucking guy. Sorry, that's not cool. Don't do that. Okay, sorry. We were looking at ownerships. I lost my shit.
We were. So Luka number one.
35% Luka. Jiminy Christmas. That is well bigger. than we expected. 24% Jaylen Brown, almost exactly what we expected. 23% Terry Rozier, Daddy likes. 19% Lauri Markkanen, that's about where it should be, minus Levine. Al Horford around 17 also. That's about right with the forward eligibility. That's where that should land. 16.5% Jason Tatum, a little higher than I'd like to see it. 13% Trey Burke. All right, there we go. That feels good. Jabari Parker 12.3. Getting stuck with the score and playing the Heat and the I think I'd want a little less than that. Marcus Morris 12, a little less than that. Justice Winslow 12, it seems about right. Marcus Smart 9, that's fine. Wayne Ellington 9, nope. Tim Hardaway 8, feels a little better. I can go with that. Josh Richardson 5.3, Daddy likes that. Deion Waiters 5%, Daddy likes that. Noah Vonleh 5%, Daddy likes that. Hassan Whiteside 4.5%, Daddy likes that. Like, the price isn't good anymore, but him getting 2 fantasy points a minute today would not surprise me. Although Rolo is a big upgrade versus, say, the earlier games this year against Bud Carter. Chris Dunn 4.5. With Levine out, I'm okay with that. Kemba 4. James Johnson 4. I like that a lot. DeAndre Jordan 3.6. I like it at that number. Dennis Smith 3.4. Sure, against the Knicks I can see that. Mario Hezonja 3. Okay. Harrison Barnes 2.6. Yeah, in the matchup I can do it. Ryan Arcidiacono, right about where I said 2.6. Daddy likes that for 3,200. Nick Batum 2.4, Jeremy Lamb 2.3, Bam Adebayo 2.25. I like that a lot for $4,300 against the Bulls. That's a good spot. Dorian Finney-Smith 1.7. There's your guy. Gordon Hayward 1.5. I have to like that. Versus Charlotte, no Kyrie, 1.5% Gordon Hayward is good. I don't know what percent of the time he hits the ceiling, but it's more than that. Kevin Knox 1.5. Shaq Harrison 1.3, again, would have been a little more interested. Wayne Selden 1.25, sure. Tyler Johnson 1.2. Don't know if you played yourself, but I don't think we
find out shortly.
Yeah, we will know shortly if you have played yourself. Wesley Matthews 1.2. I'm fine with that. 4,100, 4,200. Wesley Matthews against the Knicks again. I would want more than 1%. That feels good. Guillermo Hernan Gomez 1.2. I don't mind that either. He at minimum on Yahoo and 3,900, etc. They've been going to him a little more, and he actually is he is the only player on the Hornets who was good both games against the Celtics earlier this year. I don't think it's apropos of a goddamn thing, and Zeller was around, and I didn't even mention him for that reason, but in 2 games against the Celtics, he had, I think it was 25 DK points in 15 minutes, which is, 1.7 per minute, and 39 DK points in 23 minutes, which is 1.7 DraftKings points a minute. So if it matters to you, and he does it again today, I chose not to say it so you can blame me, but he slaughtered the Celtics twice this year. But despite what it seems like, I really don't like game log watching unless it matches up with what I expect or some specific reason I think someone's done well. I have no reason to expect him to do well against the Celtics again. Bobby Portis 0.9, Alonzo Trier 0.7, Marvin 0.6, MKG 0.34, Malik Monk 0.33. Both those last 2 making a bit more sense with the news that Tony Parker was ruled out. Kadeem Allen 0.32, brave. Ooh. Enes Kanter 0.29, brave. Bismack Biyombo 0.29, Mitchell Robinson 0.28. I actually like that quite a bit.
He should be higher owned than Kanter at this point.
Yes, he should not be owned less than Kanter. Aaron Baines 28, Zach LaVine 0.26. Congratulations, you have played yourself.
When you were talking about RTDiacono's ownership, I was thinking back when he had that run of games where he had like 40 points and like two out of 3 or something like that.
2 straight, my friend. 2 straight. Yeah. One of my greatest calls of the year was him on the first day of that at 2% owned versus the Spurs.
I remember.
And I am point guard versus the Spurs whisperer. They're just certain guys who have a play style that makes them very good against the Spurs. I did it 4 days ago with Satoransky. And he was I think he was like 10% on that day, so that wasn't that good. But he had been starting and playing, whatever minutes, and had been very tepid in 18 fantasy points and 21 fantasy points. And I was like, I love Arcidiacono today at $3,700 versus the Spurs. I really think it will push him into his strengths, and he went out and had like 43 at 2% owned. It was top 5 moment for me this year. Sorry, I don't get to play anymore. These are my brags. You can all be like, I made $100,000. I made $200,000. I'm like, I was right on a guy's name. I couldn't even pronounce at that point. I was like Archie D. I. Kono? Something? Like, I could never get it.
But like I think that's why they're harkening back to those times. Like his usage went back down, but he had a couple games there. I forget what the exact combination was, but there was some like marketing out, or maybe it was Dunn still out. There was like enough usage, and they weren't like, "Hey, don't shoot." I feel like he's not going to have that be the case today with
At
Levine
that
out.
point, Dunn was still out. That was when he was the starting point guard. Then Dunn came back, and for a while he was the starting 2, with Levine being absent, which is why I was pretty sure they'd go back to it today, and they did.
Yeah, it could be an interesting Arcidiacono day. I'm glad I forced him into a couple lineups there while we were talking, because, some guys just love that extra usage. I think he is one of those guys who it's floating around, just grab it out of the air like a kid playing with bubbles, and that's right, Arcidiacono. All right, anything else you want to hit on before we call this quits today?
No, feeling good. Think I'm back again tomorrow. I think I'm straight through. I'm going to do like 10 days in a row and then off. I think Sunday is shit, I believe. It's like 12 Saturday and 3 Sunday, I think. So... Sunday, I will almost certainly be taking a day off. But I expect to be back tomorrow, and for the duration, congrats again, winners. We had a few very good ones yesterday, especially FanDuel, where you could, like, I really liked Beasley, and I really liked Rashawn Holmes. They were both on my like list at the end of the day. So, obviously, both of those did not work out stellar. But other than that, we had it nearly perfect. The FanDuel lineup, my GPP lineup from last night, had both of those guys and still put up, like, 355 or something. Like, I had it not perfect after that. So
it was all Beasley's fault, to be honest. It wasn't. He made some real stupid plays and he got pulled out, and he just couldn't recover after that first.
Yeah, but he wore the correct shorts. So I think that's a key part of improvement as a professional basketball player is correctly putting on your uniform. So he's got that going for him, which is nice.
Is buttoning up the process one game at a time. But we appreciate each and every one of you for watching. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure to like the video on the way out. Of course, use the promo code LiveBeforeLock for 50% off of any first month on your membership at Osmo.com. Get all of the rankings here from Eddie, from Osmo, projections from Josh, all the good stuff that we talk about here on this show right at your fingertips. So check that out now. I think it'll be Eddie and Josh tomorrow. I'll be back on Friday. So I appreciate each and every one of you. I'll be on DK Live tomorrow, so watch that too. Watch them both in conjunction with each other. Dude, get a little double team from all of our various media enterprises. And I'll see you guys again soon.
Double Team, that's one of my favorite songs.
And movies with Dennis Rodman.
Oh my God, Rodman and Van Damme. Not to be confused, but there was a double impact at almost the exact same time. And another, I don't know, I feel like there was a third bad double action. But that was the good one. That was when Van Damme and Rodman were fighting a tiger and some terrorists in the Colosseum in Rome. There was that great special effects where there was an explosion, and then there was like an obviously paid for advertisement Coke machine flying at them 100 miles an hour, and they dodged into the... It was quality cinema.
That's the kind of product placement you want when you a machine attacking you in a apocalyptic situation.
It makes me think of like Maximum Overdrive, whether or not there was, that would have been a great pitch. It was like, okay, people at PepsiCo, what we want is for your machines to come alive and start killing people. Yeah,
Wait, was Double Team the one with like the ladder fight, or am I thinking of a Jackie Chan movie where they like fought with ladders, like using them as weapons?
You thinking of WrestleMania 19?
You're thinking of tables, ladders, and chairs, actually, not a movie.
TLC. I don't recall ladders. Now, admittedly, I've seen the film once 20 years ago, and it did not exactly endear itself to me or sear itself into my memory, so I will not state for the record there are not ladders, but I do recall at least 2 Jackie Chan ladder fights. So if that's a possibility, I'd be inclined to think you were Rumble in the Bronxing here or something. Yeah.
Well, yeah, Jackie Chan ladder fight scene First Strike apparently is the film I'm thinking of.
Yeah, it's good.
I'll research our ladder fight scenes. We'll get back to this on Friday. That's a good.
Sounds good. I'm looking forward to we can talk about that and best WWE ladder matches. I think Shawn Michaels and Razor Ramon is a bit overrated, but we can talk about that.
Ooh, I would disagree with that. That's actually, I think, the match that made me a wrestling fan. Like, I enjoyed it as a little kid, but that's the one where I appreciated the whole art form of it more, I think.
Okay, not a bad match. Don't get me wrong. It's just
it doesn't age well. Like, gimmick matches don't age well, is what I think.
If you have any matches from greater than 20 years ago that aren't shit, they're really, really good. Like, you look at Steamboat and Macho Man or something. That's a very, very good match. If that match happens today, you're like, okay, good match, which makes it fucking stellar for 1980 7, give or take a year. So, it is a very, very tough curve to be graded upon, certainly, setting aside
the athleticism has changed in every sport, as we'll see right now with this NBA slate. So thank you guys for watching again.
All right, bye-bye.